Hello and welcome to another Coding Specs Python tutorial. Now today I'd like to keep the video shorter than usual, but show you something which I think can be extremely important, especially if you're writing code for someone else. Now in one of our previous tutorials, which you can find linked above, we saw how to write comments within the code. That is, small pieces of text which illustrate step by step what the code does. However, it's also important to identify that some pieces of code can be extremely long, and having these descriptions throughout, yes, can help whoever it is who's actually reading the code, but for anyone who wants to use a function and wants to have an immediate understanding of its core functionality, using comments throughout the code can be quite impractical. For this reason, we generally should, in true coding practice, add an initial description to our functions which outlines its main functionality, that being what it does and what its inputs should be. Here on the screen, for example, you can see a simple function that adds two numbers together, a and b. We can write out our comment by saying, for example, add the two arguments together. And then we can say arguments will of course be a, and that is, let's say, an integer or a float. Then b will also be an integer or a float. And then it returns, well, it returns a float or integer equal to the sum of the two arguments. And then we can close this string. Now, as you can see, this is basically a string written inside the function. It doesn't have a variable name, it doesn't have anything else, it's just simply written within the lines of the function itself. Now, if we run the code by pressing the F5 key, and then we can say, for example, add 1, 2, and that will of course give us 3. However, there's a special function called help, and we can say help of add. Now what this will do is it will go and read that piece of text which we've written inside the function and return it within our output. So here, for example, we have add a comma b, that's the title of the function or the name of it, and it shows that we have two arguments. Then we have the text we wrote inside the function. We say add the two arguments together, that's the main functionality of the function. Then we have our two arguments, a and b, which can be an integer or a float. And what does the function do? Well, it returns a float or integer equal to the sum of the two arguments. Now, as you can see, for anyone who were using this function for the first time and had never seen it, having this kind of information is essential to making sure that they give the function the correct inputs and obtain the correct output as a consequence. Now, of course, here we've shown a very simple example which all of you could have easily understood, especially if you're following through with my tutorials. However, you can imagine that this also applies to much more complex functions and also to functions inside other modules or other libraries which someone else may have developed. This, of course, always helps us in understanding what other people's work means. However, remember that you also are responsible for what you do. So, make sure to write out a description when you write out your functions, so that anyone else who may use them at a later stage, or indeed you yourself may use them at a later stage, can easily and quickly identify what the function does. Now, for all of you who have followed me this far, I'm sure you'll be happy to know that there is actually an official Python definition for this kind of description, and that is a docstring. Yes, one word, docstring. With that, I thank you all for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. As always, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, as well as check out my other videos, including my tutorials, and, why not, my coding challenges as well. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, happy coding!